This is the Web Protection Overview for Administrators. In this video, we will address what Web Protection does and the benefits of using it, and go over the different implementation options. The Web Protection Service provides real-time protection against web-borne threats and inappropriate contact at the network perimeter before they can enter the internal network. The browser traffic for users is redirected to Web Protection. As each request for web content is received, Web Protection checks the content against defined policies, and if enabled, checks for known worms and viruses. Only the content that does not violate those policies and is cleaned of known threats is returned to the user. You can enable or disable specific web content policies in the control console. The service helps you secure your company and your users from harmful web content. No matter how many computers you have in your organization or how your organization is laid out, the Web Protection Service helps manage your employees from one web-based interface. So here are the four options, or access control types. This is how your users will be authenticated. Start with IP range authentication. This is a one-size-fits-all default policy. This works well for management simplicity and user protection. The users don't have to log into anything. You don't have to even create users in the console. This option does not work for roaming users, however. The drawback with this is that you don't get user-level reporting, or detailed reporting of who surfed where, or the ability to set different policies at different times. You simply put the different external IP addresses of your different offices here. Then lock down the different web browsers to only use the web proxy, or even have your firewall use the proxy address as the web gateway. So with IP authentication, get an easy deployment with no high-level installation steps for one default web policy. The next access control type is Explicit User Authentication, which has the same setup as IP authentication. You click on the checkbox here and click Save. With this setup, users are prompted one time for their console email and console password when they start a new browser session. Once entered, they can surf normally. Because we're specifically authenticating each user, you can run user reports. You can set up different levels of access for groups like staff and executives. Even schedule different policies for different times. For example, you could schedule access to Facebook for the staff group during lunchtime only. So again, with Explicit, you have to have the users in the console. You do get a pop-up. It can be used with roaming users, although there is a better option. You get user-level reporting and custom policies. As with IP authentication, there's no installation required, no high-level installation steps, and you get to use any policy you like. The next implementation is the Wds Connector. It does require users in the console, but the good news is authentication is transparent. It can work for roaming users, but that's still not the best option. We'll review that last. You get user-level reporting. It's software that runs on a server. It must be connected to the network, and it uses the user's AD password. It does require that you install the software on a server locally on the network. Now in the console, if you go to the Web Protection tab, Setup tab, and then click on the WS Connector link, you'll get the overview and the links to the setup file and the setup PDFs. See the setup document for more details and installation requirements. So that was the WDS connector. Now let's take a look at the McAfee Client Proxy, the MCP. For the McAfee Client Proxy, you need users in the console. The good news is authentication for the users is transparent, uses their network password. This is the best option if you have remote users who authenticate outside the office. Of course, you get user-level reporting. Some of the new specifics is you have a machine-level policy to set, as well as the regular web protection policy. Now, the MCP is one of the more complicated deployments. It needs to be installed per user on each machine. You download the executable, create an MCP policy for the machine, and you push that to each machine as well. So in the console, click on the McAfee Client Proxy, the MCP link, to find the overview and links to the downloads you're going to need. The deployment of the MCP is too complicated to cover here, but look at the documentation and then contact the support team if you have any questions.